lesser known movies from 1989 that you should watch. Does that sound good?
Yeah, so like the ones you might not know, the underdogs, the ones that flew under the radar, the underappreciated. Because 1989 had a lot of big hits. We could talk about, but we decided to go with the little guy, with the lesser known movies that you might not even know about.
Let's get started, man. What's your first one?
So I picked a number of maybe obscure and kind of under the radar action movies.
Mm-hmm.
And my first one is called Arena.
Yes, I know that film. I've seen it.
Do you like it?
I do like it.
It's cool though because it's kind of cheesy. It's late 80s, early 90s cheesy sci-fi. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like The Fifth Element might have been influenced by this movie.
The Fifth Element without a budget.
Yeah, without a budget. So yeah, imagine The Fifth Element with no money, like a broke ass Fifth Element. Yeah, but it's about this guy on a space station, and he's a human. He's just a cook, and he's trying to save money with his buddy, so they can get out of town or off this station and go somewhere nicer. But he ends up getting into a fight with this alien, and he beats him up. But that's a big deal because humans are weaker than all the other aliens, and humans, and he happened to beat up like a prize fighter. And so there's this chick there, she's like this manager, and she gets him in the arena, and he doesn't want to do it. But then his buddy ends up getting like held for ransom. So he's got to go fight in this arena with all these weird aliens. And it's just a fun movie. If you like kind of that cheesy, sci-fi movie from the late 80s, early 90s, this is a good one. This is an interesting one too, because there are the cast. So they're on a space station, and one of the actresses, Claudia Christian, went on to play a main role in Babylon 5, which is a space station. And then Mark Alimo and Armin Shimmerman were in this movie. Mark Alimo played this kind of bad guy mob boss, which is kind of similar to his role as Gul Dukat in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And Armin Shimmerman is like this little rat man who is very similar to Quark on Deep Space Nine. And they're on a space station playing similar roles. And then later they would go on to play on those roles on Deep Space Nine. So I thought that was really interesting.
They're like, hey, you worked for this. We've got this really boring TV series we're going to make. Do you want to play?
No, it's awesome TV series. What are you talking about? Yeah, but if people just don't take it too seriously and just want to have a good time with like a lot of weird, fun aliens, like a lot of practical effects and kind of cheese. But I thought it was good. And I think if people just want a nice popcorn flick on a Friday night, this is a good pick.
1989 was a good year for cheesy B movies. A lot of really good B movies came out in 89.
Yeah, it was. And sometimes B movies are just fun. I love good B movies, and I think this is a good kind of B movie. I think it's a lot of fun.
My first one isn't necessarily lesser known, but it's not really viewed well. And I think people need to take another look at it. And it's Harlem Nights. It was written and directed by Eddie Murphy, also stars Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, has Red Fox in it. And basically Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy they own a nightclub. It takes place in the 1930s, and it's kind of a gangster flick. And this is one of those films that is actually, it's not too comedic. I mean, Eddie Murphy plays a bit more of a serious type of a role in this. And I think that's why people didn't really like it, because they want to see these guys doing, slapstick and comedy, and it has all these comedic actors doing more serious type of a character. And that's kind of why I think people don't talk about it anymore, or they don't really talk about it in regards to quality Eddie Murphy films. It was actually nominated for 2 Razzie Awards for Worst Screenplay and Worst Director. So it kind of gives you an idea of how people view this film. But I actually really like it. Whenever I've watched it, I've seen it twice, and both times I was like, yeah, this holds up.
Yeah, it's pretty stylish too.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe you're right. Maybe people were expecting goofball comedy, and then they got some kind of like cool gangster movie, but they just weren't expecting that because of who the actors were.
Yeah.
And maybe they just got butthurt about that, and they nominated it for Razzies, but maybe it doesn't deserve Razzies, just because you have expectations that it's going to be a comedy.
Just because comedic actors are in it, and and there's funny bits and stuff, but it's not, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor type comedy is the thing.
I don't think it deserves Razzies. I agree with you, man. That Razzies, that's a whole nother level of bad. So that's not deserving at all. My next film is a movie. Have you heard of this one? It's called Blind Fury, starring Rutger Hauer.
I like how you're picking, B movies that I've seen. Although
that's great.
Blind Fury is a B movie, but it's a good film.
Yeah, it's kind of a B movie. Rutger Hauer started pretty much after Blade Runner started doing kind of lower budget action movies. I kind of like his movies, like his lower budget action movies. This one's about a blind samurai martial artist guy. I guess he lost his sight in Vietnam, and then a village took him in, and they trained him how to be a sword fighter. That's pretty cool, right? So he goes back and he's blind. Everybody thinks he's just kind of harmless because he's blind, but he's actually a badass because he can do total sword play. He's helping this kid try to dodge. I guess he's involved in some kind of crime syndicate stuff, and they're trying to kidnap him. So he's got to use his sword play to kick ass. And then there's this big fight at the end with this other sword guy, and it's just kind of fun, dude, because I don't know, especially when you're a kid in 1989, you're like, oh, cool, blind sword fighter. That's badass. So I like that movie. And I think people, if you haven't heard of it, you haven't seen it, maybe give it a shot. That's another, again, kind of low budget action movie. You could just get some popcorn, have some fun with it.
Yeah, and it's some of the fight sequences, you're like, there's no way that a blind guy could actually fight this well.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Maybe one can. I don't want to disparage upon the blind.
No, but I mean, I don't even know if you could do half that stuff if you can see, let alone if you're blind. But hey, man, he was trained in some village in Southeast Asia, though. So it's mystical. It's mystical shit, man.
And in a reasonably short period of time as well.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about martial arts movies. Like, I don't know, you look at the Karate Kid.
Yeah, it only takes a short time and you're totally badass.
And yeah, you did a couple months. We're going to have a tournament in a couple months, and you don't know karate, but I'll teach you a couple months. You'll be a black belt. Yeah. That's how this guy is. Spend a little time in a village. Next thing you know, he's like a master, sword fighter. Others, have to spend years and years and years honing and crafting their skill, but it's a mystical thing because he was in a village,
of course,
and he's blind.
You always learn better in a village in Southeast.
Yeah, and you're blind too. So if you're in a mystical village and you're blind, you're gonna learn shit quick because Hollywood.
My next choice is Casualties of War. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, that's heavy.
It's a serious film, and it's directed by Brian De Palma and starring Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn. And the reason why I put this on the list is because it often gets, when you list great Vietnam films, you hear Full Metal Jacket, Platoon, Apocalypse Now, those kind of films. And this one is never on the list. And it really should be, because it's really a brilliant film. I mean, first of all, you got Michael J. Fox playing a serious character versus this was when he was real young, did the kind of, comedies, the TV, he was, from Family Ties and stuff like that. Sean Penn is brilliant performance as the sergeant of the platoon, who basically what he does is he gets his platoon to kidnap a Vietnamese girl, and they take her and they rape her and kill her, except for Michael J. Fox, who basically is fighting against the platoon. But it's this kind of moral piece of, he wants to be part of the team, but he also has these morals because hasn't been in Vietnam as long as the other guys. So he hasn't been, spurned by it in the way that they have by watching, friends die and all the killing and that kind of stuff. So you get this story of what would you do in that scenario? Would you stand up to the guys, or would you go along with it? Of course, we all think, of course, I'd stand up to it. But maybe after a few years in a terrible war like Vietnam, maybe you would go along with it, because after a certain point, it must be hard to look at other people as even human in ways, right?
Yeah.
So it's just brilliantly acted. It didn't make any money. It had an 18 million budget or 22 million budget, and it made 18 million at the box office. This is John C. Reilly's first film, and according to the trivia, John C. Reilly was basically just supposed to be an extra, but then got replaced one of the other people on camera. Has John Leguizamo in it, and Ving Rhames plays a small part in it as well. But yeah, it's a good moral film that gets you kind of wondering. Great performances, and it just gets overshadowed by other Vietnam films that I don't think it should.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's underappreciated. Like you said, like when you have a list of Vietnam War films, this is often not on it. And you're right. I think it should be. It's heavy. It's a heavy film. And it's not like action-y or anything. It's really a dramatic piece, and it's really heavy. But yeah, I agree with you, dude. That's a good movie.
My only complaint about it is if you remember from, I don't remember the last time you saw it, but like it opens with Michael J. Fox on a bus years later. So he basically, so that he's going to live throughout the whole thing, and then and then it's all done through flashbacks. So that annoys me whenever that's done in film in general, but in this even more so. I think it would have worked if it just started with him arriving in Vietnam and ending with the results of the trial at the very end. It could use a re-edit and cut that other crap out that's not needed. And I also found out in researching this is based on a true story. So this really happened. There were some guys that kidnapped a girl, raped her, and killed her, and one of the guys in the platoon actually spoke up and was like, no, this is wrong, and reported it.
War is heavy, man. Bad people doing bad things.
Yeah.
So my next movie is a movie called The Punisher. Have you ever seen the 1989 Punisher?
I have indeed. Yep.
Yeah, you saw it, dude.
Of course I have. Of course I have.
Yeah. This is a lot of people maybe don't know about it. And actually, it didn't have a theatrical release in the U.S. Everywhere else in the world, it did.
Oh, I didn't know.
But they didn't release it in the theaters in the U.S. because of some budget. They ran out of money or something. And so in the U.S., it was a direct to VHS kind of deal. So there's that. But here's the thing. It stars Dolph Lundgren, right? Lundgren. And I think he's kind of a cool Punisher. And a lot of people are like, well, he's not wearing the skull shirt. Well, okay, get over that. So Frank Castle, his family dies because, they're killed by mafia dudes. And so he's just going around wrecking them all. And Louis Gossett Jr. is his ex-partner. He's trying to track him down. But the Punisher lives in the sewers like a Ninja Turtle, right? So he's hard to get. And then the Japanese mob, because back in the 80s, everything Japanese was cool. So the Yakuza is coming in trying to take over. So he's fighting with them. And it's just fun. It gets a lot of grief. But I think
because
it does
not too true to the comic, I think is part of the grief that it gets.
Yeah, right? But I think it's fairly true. And here's the thing, it looks realistic. I think that's what a lot of people didn't like. They're like, well, it's not comic-y book enough. Because it actually looks like he's a guy and he's going to do his thing, and the whole surrounding, everything just looks kind of realistic, which is what I like about it. Like this is a guy who could exist in the real world, right? So I think maybe a lot of people don't know about it because it didn't have a theatrical release, and it didn't come out until later in the US on VHS. But I remember when I was a kid, I watched it on cable or something. I'm like, I like this. It's pretty good. And I've always been kind of a Dolph Lundgren fan. I know he's not like the best actor in the universe, but I just think he's just a big European guy who kicks ass. So yeah, I think it gets a lot of flack, but I think if people watch it again and maybe give it a shot and open their minds and keep their minds open about it, I think they might like it. And in fact, this was one of the first movies based on comic characters, right? They didn't really have a lot of that going on back then. Now it's just pervasive, but back then they didn't have a whole lot of that going on. So this was one of the first, I think, as far as I know, this is the first Punisher movie. They've made multiple movies afterward. But this is the OG Punisher, man. Dolph Lundgren, the Punisher, and he's got this like drunk actor guy. He kind of partners up with, and this drunk actor guy is like going around finding information for him and stuff. It's fun. Give it a try again, man. Give it a try, people. I think you might like it. Just open your mind.
Open your mind to the Punisher.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just a low budget, movie, but it's again, I have a thing for low budget action movies.
Yeah, me too.
From the 80s and 90s. I think they were just a lot of fun.
My next choice might be a bit controversial on this list because it's pretty well-known film. Tango and Cash.
Oh yeah, Tango and Cash.
So Tango and Cash is a great film, but on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got the tomato score of 30%, the audience score of 52%, and it's often panned. Basically, Siskel and Ebert, trashed it, basically saying it was a typical, buddy cop movie, but without the humor, without the, just unnecessary violence and stuff. But that's what makes this a good film. It has Jack Palance playing the bad guy in this like overly dramatic evilness, which is just fantastic. And Tango and Cash, which is played by Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Two cops, they don't like each other, yet they're total tough guys. They push people around, they shoot first, they punch first, and then ask questions.
Yeah, they're rivals, right?
Yeah, they're in rivals.
They're trying to be the top cop, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get framed for a crime. They end up going to prison. They end up having to break out of prison. And of course, all this happens in like the super short period of time, to allow the movie to progress. They then go and they get this cool ass truck where they attack Jack Palance's warehouse and get in a battle with other trucks that also happen to have like guns attached to the side of them, like because that's realistic.
Yeah, that's badass.
Explosions and completely unnecessary. The building where Jack Palance's hideout is conveniently has like a self-destruction bomb planted in it. And it's just like, why would this even be here kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's just completely unbelievable. It's got cheesy one-liners. Like at one point, Sylvester Stallone, one of the other cops is like to Stallone, he's like, who do you think you are, Rambo? And then Stallone's character is like, Rambo's a pussy, like,
Rambo is a pussy. Yeah, but he played Rambo.
It's just, cheesy one-liners, over the top action sequences that are completely unbelievable, plot completely unbelievable, performances that are completely unbelievable. But it's a great film. It's a great buddy cop film that people don't give its respect to because they view it against, Lethal Weapon or any of those other kind of films. And they're like, oh, this is stupid. And that's probably why it never got a sequel.
Yeah, I agree. I actually really like that movie. Rotten Tomatoes, I don't know, man. Whatever. It's just a lot of fun, and it's its own thing. It's its own buddy cop kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's trying to take itself seriously, right? With the guns on the side of the truck and all that craziness, it's over the top, and it wants to be. I think people don't get that. It stars Terry Hatcher, a young Terry Hatcher.
Oh yeah.
She was, dude, and she was like some dancer stripper kind of. Oh man, she's so hot. And Robert Zadar, who's like Mr. B action movie himself, Robert Zadar.
Yep. Michael Pollard is in it. He plays this kind of Q type character that, hooks him up with the truck.
Yeah. That's just a fun movie. I agree with you, man. It gets way too much grief. People just don't know what's up.
Yeah. And that's why I put it on this list, because people should watch it.
I agree with you. Yeah. It's underappreciated. My last one here, I'm going cheese today, man. Have you ever heard of this movie Warlock?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it.
So, like in Boston in like 1691, a warlock is kind of like a man witch, right?
Oh, is that like with the ground meat and the sauce, the man witch?
No, yeah, give me some man witch. Yeah, but this man witch, he's a warlock, and he's sentenced to death, but he like uses magic to go into the future. And so this witch hunter guy, also follows him into the future, present day 1989, and lands in a woman's house. And then he ends up like partnering with her to go find this warlock who's going around kind of causing trouble and doing bad things. And it's just it's dumb and it's fun. They even end up in Amish country at one point, and the Amish guy's like, he totally gets the whole witch hunting thing because he's Amish, right? So the guy from like the 17th century is like, "Oh, you're Amish? Yes, I know exactly what's going on here. You're hunting a witch. Yes, help us." Yeah, but it's just really dumb. It's so stupid, but it's just fun, man. Again, I think a lot of these movies are just that I'm mentioning are fun. This is another low budget kind of fantasy, kind of slightly horror action kind of thing. And I think people might not know about it because I think it's gone into obscurity and like people don't know about it. But I think people should take a look, see if they can find Warlock from 1989. Again, another goofy popcorn Friday night flick, like my other ones. I'll have to maybe see if I can find it. Some of these movies are hard to find that I'm mentioning because they're just so obscure now. Like they're long forgotten in the history of movies, like never to be seen again. So some of these might be hard to get, but if people can, I think it's worth it to go try to find these movies and revisit them.
Yeah, totally. I'll check that one out if I can find it. It would be nice.
Did I finally get one that you haven't seen?
That's one I have not seen, so I'll.
Nice. Well, I would recommend watching that maybe this Friday night with your lady. Like, just get some popcorn and watch Warlock.
Okay.
Oh no, make some manwiches.
Yeah, that's it. We'll have some manwiches.
Yeah, make some manwiches and watch Warlock.
Well, speaking of cheesy B-movie sci-fi, have you seen Eric the Viking?
Eric the Viking? No.
Yeah. It stars Tim Robbins as Eric the Viking. So it's written and directed by Terry Jones of Monty Python fame. And in a lot of ways, it's basically a Monty Python film. John Cleese plays a role in it. Terry Jones also is in it. And it's got Mickey Rooney in it as well. Eartha Kitt makes a cameo in it. It's the debut of Samantha Bond, who later plays Moneypenny in the Pierce Brosnan era James Bond movies, which is kind of cool. So it's Eric, played by Tim Robbins, is a Viking, and he basically kind of gets tired of the pillaging and attacking and that kind of stuff, and he gets put on this quest to go find this horn that basically it's a magic horn, right? And him and his crew, they go out in the ocean. They get attacked by this like cheesy B-movie sea monster thing that you don't really see because it's all super low budget. And it's basically, it's a Monty Python film in a lot of ways. And that's, yeah, I mean, if you love Monty Python, you're going to love this. But this is the one I grabbed the Roger Ebert quote on. He hated it. And he basically said, it's an utterly worthless exercise in waste and wretched excess. It's uninformed by the slightest spark of humor, wit, or coherence. The whole point of the movie is to spend millions of dollars on special effects so that British actors can make clever small talk. That was Roger Ebert's review.
That's brutal, dude.
Yeah, totally.
Dang. Oh, tell us how you really feel, bro.
But it's not an awful movie. It's fun. It's Monty Python-ish. It's Tim Robbins playing a comedic character, and totally worth watching.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, so I think maybe I'm going to check that one out for sure. Maybe this make that my weekend movie. So you can watch Warlock, and I can watch Eric the Viking.
Exactly.
Nice.